Welcome on in, everybody, to another edition of the Mo Vaughn Podcast, powered by Perfect Game and the Vaughn Sports Academy. And Mo, very excited to talk to the guests that we got. Our first in-studio guest for the podcast.
This guy couldn't be a better guy. Guys, listen, for everybody out there, the fact that we get Joe in the room is unbelievable because he has both perspectives. Number one, being as a catcher, which, we all know is the most important position on the field. And then secondly, as a world championship manager. So we are very gracious for you being here, brother. It's going to be a good show.
We're excited. Joe Girardi, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. Love being here, and I love what you're doing, Mo, and your interest in youth baseball and the kids. It's fantastic.
It is, man. It's a lot of fun. But let's talk about you.
All right.
Okay. 15-year major league career. You were an all-star in 2000. You're a 3-time world champion as a Yankee, as a player. You're a 2009 champion as a Yankee, as a manager. And you've caught, in the 90s, a Dwight Gooden no-hitter. And you've also caught a David Cone perfect game. Like, Joe, this is talk to me a little bit about, first of all, because I always try to reach back and look into people's backgrounds because I think that is important. Talk to me about your dad, being in the Air Force and how that raised you to be the manager and the leadership that you were in that position and as a manager, as a player.
Well, there were so many things that my father taught me. And I think that the most valuable lesson I ever got from my father was finish the job. And I learned it through so many different ways. My father worked 3 jobs to support us, to put us through, private Catholic high schools. My father was always there to practice sports with us and play basketball in the backyard, to play catch in the backyard, to feed the machine to me. Whatever I asked him to do, I followed my father. But I remember a specific story when my father was changing the spigot on the bathtub in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And he had the big wrench on and he's trying to loosen it up and it slips and hits his thumb and he's bleeding and he's broke his thumb. But he never stopped doing the job. Right. My father finished the job before he went to the hospital to get an x-ray. And it just taught me so much about, being able to persevere and to finish what you started, no matter what the circumstances. Because you know how many times we get knocked down in baseball. And I'm not talking about from a pitch, but right. How many times we fail, and you have to finish and finish and finish. And it was a valuable lesson that my father taught me, and I'll never forget it.
From your standpoint of facing this guy right here behind the plate, you talk a little bit about the nickname that you had for him before we got on here.
He doesn't know it.
I got to know because the intimidation this guy brought up to the plate.
Yeah.
What did you have when Mo Vaughn would step into the box?
So when Mo would walk to the plate, he'd get right on top of the plate and he'd be going like this over the plate. And you couldn't even see underneath his elbows as the catcher, right? And I thought he was like a tiger mauling something. Right. So I called him the Boston Mauler. I never even told him that. But he was such an intimidating figure. And man, could he hit. And he was dangerous. And he was the guy that, you circled in the lineup. Don't let Mo beat you. But the other day, I brought him up on the broadcast. I'm doing the Yankees Baltimore. And all of a sudden, one of the pitchers was struggling, and a bunch of guys ran to the mound. And I said, this would be a good time to visit the mound. And here comes Jazz Chisholm. Right. And then here comes Volpe. And then here comes Paul Goldschmidt, the catcher. And they said, well, who was like the guy that was most influential when they would go to the mound? And I said, I thought Tino was always really good when he went to the mound, Tino Martinez. But the guy I like to see go to the mound the most was Mo Vaughn. And they said, why did you like to see Mo? And I said, well, Mo would stomp like he was going to kill you if you didn't get it together, right? Let's go. And I know he wasn't bringing that attitude out there, but again, he was such an intimidating figure. And I used to love to see you go to the mound. A lot of times I would start laughing, and you see players on the other side that you love to compete against. And there's certain things that you appreciate that they do. And you did that because you had good timing. You knew when a pitcher needed a pat. You knew when a pitcher needed a let's go or a little kick in the rear end. But he was very influential. And what a great player you were.
Man, I really appreciate it. you never know how your peers feel about you.
Yeah.
And I've done this and been able to talk to just you being here. And we've had so many like matchups. I mean, that 90s era that you were with the Yankees was so powerful. I was always like, man, you can't walk one guy. You can't make one mistake. They're taking pitches. They're always on the doorstep. You guys were always on the doorstep. Like it was always one pitch away from breaking it open. So it was just an honor as a player to be able to compete against that team. And, listen, they won all the battles. They won all the wars. Maybe I won one or two battles, but what a great feel it was to come into Yankee Stadium and try to go up against such a force of a team. And then, so Joe, for our listeners, I think what's missing now is people don't understand what it means to be a catcher in terms of scouting report. When advanced scouting, advanced before the game. People just think that we just walk to the stadium and they just throw the ball down the middle. They don't understand that, a couple series before, the team you're going to face has a scout there looking at what you're hitting and what you're not hitting. And then the catcher goes in. Do they still have, you managed all the way up for, 2013, 2014. Were they having pitcher meetings and hitter meetings to go over the pitcher or to go over, how we're going to attack the pitcher? To me, it seems like in today's game, everybody's just walking to home plate and they're just swinging. Like no one's saying, okay, this guy's sinker slider. We're going to take this pitch. We're going to go after this pitch. We're going to talk to a little bit about how important that is to understand how to attack certain guys.
Well, I think the biggest difference today in hitting is everyone's always trying to get their ace swing off.
1,000%.
There aren't different clubs in the bag dependent on the situation. The meetings you still have. We still have the meetings. We would talk about what pitchers have, what they like to throw in certain situations, what they like to throw in certain counts, how he's approached you before. And then hitters will have individual meetings with the hitting coach and say, this is what he did to you before. And you get so much more information because you can get video of the guy. They'll send it to your iPad. The teams give you everyone iPads and they send you all the information you need on the guys that you're facing that day and the guys in the bullpen. And you're able to meet every day on the starter. So I really believe there's a lot more information, but I think the approach has changed. And that's the biggest difference that we see. So a lot of times you say, well, the Yankees only hit home runs to win. Well, they score runs. That's the bottom line.
Right.
And I think you have to understand who you have. Now you look at Toronto. Toronto's not a team that strikes out. The Yankees are a team that strikes out. They are different. Boston does not strike out, and they're very athletic. There's a lot of different ways to put your team together, and you do get the scouting reports. But I think the one thing we're lacking is the different swings in the bag.
Well, how much trust do you think is still in the game? Because it feels like, they got more technology than ever. You got pitch comms now, all that type of stuff. But you guys had to be such leaders on the field. You did have to have a feel of when it was to go talk to your pitchers or whatever. Is that still there today? Do you still have guys who can do that as much, or is it more of a controlled environment?
I don't think guys play as much as Mo and I's generation played games. I think they're in the lab more trying to perfect their swing or trying to perfect spin rate or velocity more than competing against other players. So I'm not so sure players have the same feel. There are a lot of guys do. Like I watch Cody Bellinger play. And I would say from our generation, one of the best compliments you can give a player is you say, he's a baseball player.
Right.
He's a baseball player.
Us, yeah.
He can play left, center, he can play right, he plays first, he runs the bases, he has different swings depending on the count and the situation. He's a baseball player. And they're like, what do you mean by that? Well, just watch him. He does everything right. He takes the extra base when he's supposed to. But players are so gifted now. They're so athletic, they're so big, and they're so strong. And that's why the game has changed. Now, there's shortstops today or second baseman that hit like Mo did back in the day he was playing. You didn't have to worry about 8 guys in a lineup hitting 20 home runs when I caught.
Right.
You got to worry. The game is completely different. I think partly because of the size of the players, and it's just different. Just like basketball has changed. Football used to be run it all the time. Now all they do is pass it.
Right.
A run's considered a 2-yard pass. So I just think it's evolved, and I think players have a pretty good feel, some of them. But just like when we played, some players didn't have a feel. They just didn't.
I was thinking about, you and the Yankees. What great staffs. Then you had those good lefty specialists, and then you had Mo in the bullpen. But talk a little bit about how you guys always had guys that were going 6th and 7th innings. And I try to tell people, listen, I'm not that old, but just a few years back, guys were pitching deeper into the game. But if they didn't have to show you their out pitch until it was needed, they were pitching. They were throwing that fastball from 92 to 88, taking on, taking off. If they're cruising, they're cruising. Now I think sometimes pitching, they're throwing that, they're showing everything so early, it's hard to get deeper into the game. And that's the pitching aspect of, you guys said, listen, you had David Cone, nasty, El Duque, Pettit, then your Clemens. You guys had guys that knew how to pitch and get themselves in that. There's always going to be the starter pitcher is always going to have one high leverage inning in a game unless it's just blown wide open. And he's going to have to make pitches. So he's going to have to get tough at some point in time to get out of it. But Joe, talk about how these guys going deeper and understanding how to pitch, versus what's happening sometimes now.
Well, I think the reason they were number one, were able to go deeper is it wasn't max effort. Again, we're in a power game, right? Everything is max effort. And they worry about just the out that they're trying to get. They're not worried about the second time I face a guy and the third time I face him. And numbers, there are so many more numbers that are given to us. And you see a lot of times guys are either bad the first time through or a lineup or bad the third time through. That's where you see it. And to me, those were always like a roadmap to when you really had to watch a guy. But I think the max effort that guys have started to throw with, and the last 5 or 6 years, always going for the strikeouts. They don't get quick outs. And because their stuff is really good, you get more foul balls than balls put in play.
Okay.
So I don't think they're able to get as deep. They're at 100 pitches after 5 innings, where back when we played, guys would do 15 pitch innings. They'd be at 105 and they had 7 innings under the belt. It just doesn't happen today because, again, the game has changed. There's a lot of high fastballs. Guys either swing and miss or they foul them off. But there aren't quick outs anymore. There just isn't. And, a pitcher averages 16, 17, 18 pitches per inning. Those add up pretty quickly. And God forbid you have a bad inning, it adds up real quickly. The Yankees have a guy in the name of Cam Schlittler who in the minor leagues was throwing 94, 95 this year. He comes up and he's averaging 98. And we're like, where did that come from? Right? Better food, better travel. He's gotten stronger. And there's just so much there for the players to improve that, again, pitchers are 97. When we played, Mo, was there 1, maybe 2 guys on a staff that would throw 98?
Right. Now
there's 7 or 8. And it's a power game, and there's a lot of foul balls. Balls aren't put in play, and they can't get as deep in the game.
What's the comparison? You played in New York, which obviously has got one of the big media havens. Can you compare pressure as far as like a player to being the manager who's got to answer to everybody every day?
Well, I've always thought the pressure comes from within because no one wanted to do better than what I wanted to do as a player or a manager for the organization. And you learn to tune things out over time. You learn to stay in your lane and stay focused. It's amazing when you're in games and you're at the plate and there's 40,000 people yelling at you. You don't hear a thing because you're so locked in. And you get that way as a player, and you're trained as time goes on and understanding that, your job as a player is to do the best you can and help your teammates do the best they can. And as a manager, the only thing that's different as a manager and a player, as a player, I only had to answer for myself. Now, as a manager, I got to answer for 26 guys, and they keep increasing the roster, so it's more and more, right? When I first came up, it was only 24.
24, right?
Yeah, so now it's 26, and you have to answer for everybody. And everybody wants an answer and a reason why. And a lot of times the reason why is
it just didn't happen today.
Just the guy on the other side was just a little bit better for whatever reason. Now, it could have been I swung at a bad pitch. It could have been, you know what, I'm a little bit fatigued. You know, Mo's played 13 days in a row and his bat's just a tick slower than it usually is, and he doesn't catch up. I mean, there's so many reasons, and the schedule is so hard. And it's sometimes you just don't see a guy. What do you mean you don't see him? I don't pick up his fastball. His fastball looks like it's 100 and he's throwing 92 to me today. So there are so many things, but you have to answer for a lot more people as a manager. And the big thing is you have to protect them. You know, protecting yourself is one thing, but protecting and making sure you say the right thing that can't be misconstrued for something else for 26 people, you got to pay attention to your words.
Yeah. I always like to let people know at home, when you're sitting at home in your chair, just understand, I know you love the game, and the game is for big people, small people, wide people, skinny people. You cannot walk the home plate and hit looking at it on the TV.
No.
It is one thing that you cannot do. I know it looks, you're going, how did he take that pitch? That curveball was right down the middle. Step in the box one time and you'll see how hard it is to do it.
A lot of people will ask me, what's the difference as a broadcaster and as a player? And I said, how easy the game looks, right? When you sit there and you watch it on TV and you're not, ball's right down the middle, like you're saying. Well, what is he thinking, right? And it doesn't look like it's fast, right? You have so little time to make up a decision whether to swing or not swing. It looks like it's in slow motion, and it's like, wow, how did I not hit that pitch? And then it's just what it is.
As a manager, and I think I know this answer because I think I've played against you, and I've seen you in the dugout and doing things. How much did analytics play? Was analytics part of your decision making? And did you use your eyes? Or was analytics the entire process for you?
Well, it's interesting. When you get to be 60 years old, they call you old school, right? Because you're older than most people and they think you think one way. The interesting thing, when I first started managing, they called me Binder Joe because I relied on so many numbers, right? I loved math. I love science. I have an engineering degree.
That's that Northwestern. That's the right? Northwestern smarts.
So I always thought numbers told a story, right? And there are certain numbers that I remember. Like I remember to this day, and I don't know why this is the one that sticks out to me the most, but Albert Bell sat soft on even counts, right? You look at his numbers and you can see what he hit on it. And I've always remembered that. Maybe I got burned on it once and it etched it into my mind. But I've always thought numbers tell a story. However, we always use numbers. There's more available to you now, but it's an average. So if a guy struggles, pitch 80 through 90, that doesn't mean that every day he's going to struggle pitch 80 through 90. There are going to be days, some days he struggles pitch 60, and other days he struggles pitch 100. So that's where your eyes come in. And I think Don Zimmer gave me some of the best advice I ever got about when to take a pitcher out. He said, watch the swings. The hitters will tell you everything you need to know about what his stuff looks like. So the first two times he goes, the first 14, 15 hitters, he goes through the lineup. There are very few foul balls. The counts are short. The outs are quick. Now all of a sudden guys are fouling 3 and 4 balls off him in and back, and you're saying, he's lost a little bit. And that's your eyes telling you that he's losing it. And then, sometimes you take a guy out and they're like, why'd you take him out? And I said, you don't want to say it in the press conference, but the last 5 guys hit the ball 105 miles an hour or over, and they were outs.
Right.
So my eyes were telling me that he was done. They were telling me that he was done. Oh, okay. So I think you have to be able to use both, right? Because number one, a player doesn't want to be managed just from numbers.
No,
they're going to get upset if you say, well, it says the third time through, you're not any good. And he's rolling and right. You take him out and he's going to be, you're kidding me, right? Right. Because you have to show some faith and trust. And how do you get a guy through the lineup the third time? You got to show faith and trust. It's part of the process of helping a pitcher mature or somebody else mature. So numbers were always really important to me. I still look at numbers today. When I broadcast a game, I got so many numbers in my head and Baseball Savant, but I've also watched every pitcher that's going to pitch in the series. I've watched every hitter that hits in the series, and you learn what they can hit and they can't hit. It's just, again, analytics is just another tool in your bag. It's not everything, but it's a big tool.
I remember your first season managing with the Marlins, and I was Joe. We all thought that team was going to be so bad,
Yeah.
And I was like, they just come off this kind of cool era where they were actually just trying to win. They won the World Series previous, and we all thought that team was going to stink. And did you know, like, what point did you know that this team's going to be pretty good? And it makes sense now. You look back at the names, and you're like, oh man, those were talented guys. But when you take that job and you look around, and everybody thinks you're going to finish in dead last. Like, when did you know, hey, they could turn into something pretty decent?
It took a while. It took about 50 games to figure out that we were going to be okay. I knew there was talent, but the interesting thing was the players that I knew were going to be in certain spots went to the WBC. I'm thinking, okay, the only players that I know who are going to play have left. So now we have to figure this out. And they were extremely young. The most enjoyable thing about that year for me was youth doesn't get tired, right? They could work and work and work and never get tired. You know, Mo, when you're 33, 34 and you're playing a day game after a night game, you're just grouchy, right? Kids aren't grouchy. They're like raring to go, and they want to take BP, and they want to take infield, and they want to do all these things. And we started off pretty poor. We started off 11-31, and then we made some changes to the rotation, and we actually got back to 500. And I knew it was a talented group of kids as we started to get into June and July. But the biggest thing, I think, for a young player is understanding that you can do this. There's always the belief you can do it, but there's a difference between a belief and an understanding and knowing what you need to do to be successful. And all of a sudden, you could see him figuring it out. You could see Danny Ugla figuring it out and Hanley Ramirez figuring it out. And I remember saying to Larry Bonfest, the general manager, about 2 weeks into spring training, I said, the biggest thing we have to learn about Dan Ugla is where we're going to hit him in the lineup. He's like, whoa. You think he's that good? I'm like, oh, he's pretty good, right? And Danny Ugla had a great year, and Hanley had a great year, and Josh Willingham. And there were just so many players that grew up in front of our eyes. It was a blast to watch.
Did you, what was it like watching Miguel Cabrera? Like, I think, this guy, 20 years old, bursting onto the scene, the stage that he did. But what did you see from him from a special day to day?
Well, I first saw him on a rehab in 2023. I was with the Cardinals, and I was in Tennessee, and I was rehabbing in AA, and he was facing Jason Isringhauser, who was rehabbing too. And he was taking great swings, taking balls just off the plate. And I said, how old are you? He was like, I'm 18. I said, why are you still here? Right? I mean, he was in AA like at 18 years old. And I could tell then he was going to be a great player, but I never knew I was going to manage him. He was as mature as, like, in his process as any young player I ever saw. And I would tell the guys, you want to know why Miguel Cabrera is such a great hitter? Watch his BP. Watch how he works. Watch how he does it. Watch his approach. Right, his approach was right center with fastballs, and he would pull breaking balls, and he wouldn't hit everything into the seats in BP like guys can do today. He worked and worked and worked, and he was as good as any young player I'd ever been around. And he's a for sure Hall of Famer. And I remember having a conversation. I said, "What do you want out of this game?" He said, "Well, I want to win the World Series." And I said, "Yeah, of course." And I said, "What else?" I said, "What about, your legacy? What do you want it to be?" And he's like, I don't know. I said, "I just want to be good." I said, "You should want to be the greatest Venezuelan player that ever played, because you have that ability." And I think you could argue that he's the greatest Venezuelan player that's ever played. That's how good he was. And I mean, you think about him as a kid in the World Series against the Yankees, he was fantastic. One of the best hitters I ever saw.
Were you bummed at all that you didn't get to continue?
Yes.
Can you give me the story of like what happened with you and Loria? Because it goes down in lore. I've heard it from everybody but you, because Joe, I was so bummed that you didn't continue.
Yeah, I was too. Because I love those kids. And there were things that I will never talk about, but what I was accused of saying, it wasn't me. but I was just going to do what I had to do to get the most out of the players and see what happens, right? And obviously they didn't bring it back. And it was a blessing for me because 2008, I got the Yankees job. I don't know if I'm ever the first manager, but I think I might be the first manager to ever win Manager of the Year and get fired. But it wasn't right from the beginning, and it played out that way. The valuable lesson that I learned from that is you need everyone in the organization to want you as their choice, not just some people.
So you guys, I mean, the rattles between Red Sox and Yankees, like
I want to get him. I'm going to get him on that, but I'm going to be selfish right now. What was my scouting report at Fenway Park versus left-handed and right-handed pitching? And then how did it change the scouting report at Yankee Stadium?
Yeah. Well, the one thing
the only reason why I'm saying this, everybody, is because this is the only time I'm going to get this information. I don't know if I'm going to get another guy, this close to me that I know this well, that's going to be able to talk. But I always wanted to know what the scouting report was.
Well, the one thing that you always say about left-handers is you never want to go down in it. Now, if you looked at Mo and how he stood in his upper half kind of slanted over home plate, you would think that you could be able to get there.
Right.
You couldn't. You could not get down and into him. So you wanted to pitch him in so he couldn't, break the left field wall down. And we tried to pitch him in, and we tried to make him pull more in Fenway, right, just because he was so good at going the other way and hitting it off the wall, and he could hit it over the wall. Even though the wall was really high, he had no problem hitting over. And then it flips a little bit at Yankee Stadium. You're going to go more down and away just because. And you know who was also really good at hitting from park to park like you were? Was Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah.
Completely different hitter at Fenway and at Yankee Stadium, and they took advantage. And that's a smart hitter, and that's a hitter having different swings in his bag, right? Being able to go take, and I think Fenway Park makes left-handed hitters better hitters, and I think Yankee Stadium makes right-handed hitters better hitters because of their approach. It's not to pull, it's more through the middle. And give me any hitter that just thinks pull, pull, pull,
get him out.
I can get him out. But give me a hitter that goes both ways like Mo did, he's a problem. So then what do you say? Don't let him beat you. Pitch around him.
I'll never get it from a guy standing behind. And you know what's funny about Joe used to walk up to me. Now listen, I'm going in Yankee Stadium. I'm like, man, we gotta turn it up right now. We're going in here. These guys are hot. We're coming out of Baltimore or somewhere. I'm usually swinging the bat pretty good because I usually swing the bat pretty good in Baltimore because that's where my dad's from. And then I'm from that whole New England tri-state area. So, it's going to be a 4-game series. We're going to play one National Day game on the weekend. Then we're going to play that Sunday night game. And every time I come to Fenway Park, Joe, Mo, what's up? How you doing? I'm walking home plate. I'm like, why is he talking to me? What is he? I always wanted to ask him, was he trying to get in my head at that time, or were you just conversating? He goes, Mo, how you doing? How's your day today?
I think I was just being conversational, but I also think I was trying to distract. Chili Davis told me to.
You was distracting.
Shut up. Chili Davis came up, said, Joe, shut up. Don't talk to me today. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's my job to distract you so you don't kill us. And I always had a lot of fun. Now, again, if you get to first base, who's going to talk to you? Mo. So you did the same thing.
But at first base, you're relaxing. You're on first.
Yeah, you're calculating your batting average when you get to first.
I'm up there this is a key situation. Mo, how you doing today? What do you mean, Joe? Why are you talking to me? You
guys should have some relays. Like if you guys were ever teammates, you could plot getting into the head of somebody. Well, if he gets to first base.
It's so great to have him sitting here because he was actually right there in the tunnel with me, and you don't get that a lot.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, and the Cub Cardinal was our big rivalry.
Yeah.
Right. And people would ask me, what's the difference between Cub Cardinal and Red Sox Yankee? I said, well, the people with the Cub Cardinals actually like each other. The Red Sox and Yankee fans don't like each other, and the intensity is off the charts. Mm-hmm. And I just remember so many days, like, here comes a big series with the Red Sox, and you try to walk around a little bit in the town where you stayed, and they're like, oh, this is big series. You can't lose this one. I said, what about all the other series? They're not big because they all count.
Right.
But the intensity between the two cities is fantastic. And it was just a lot of fun to be a part of that rivalry. Now, I didn't appreciate the 4-hour games always, especially when you're catching the 4 and God forbid you had a split doubleheader because you were at the ballpark from like 10 in the morning until midnight.
Till midnight.
Yeah. But just a great rivalry, great intensity, great atmospheres at both parks. Obviously I'm pro Yankee, great atmosphere. Fenway Park, great atmosphere, great cities.
I used to go to
so much fun.
Yankee Stadium. It was tremendous. Joe, you got so much information. You're still very, very sharp in the game. Would you ever go back and manage again?
Oh, I think I would. I think it would have to be the right situation, Mo. Mm-hmm. But obviously,
the game needs you.
I don't think you ever lose that desire because you love the competitiveness and the strategy and the relationships. I mean, what do we miss the most when we retire? It's the relationships. Yeah.
Clubhouse, right?
Yeah. You're part of a family. And the good thing about broadcasting is you get that. But there's no place like a clubhouse.
Yeah. You're right. I talk about it all the time.
It's do you think you're going to, if you do go back, will you miss arguing with umpires as much now that they're going to have automatic strike zones?
Yeah, I don't really want to argue with umpires because there's a lot of times that I would argue with an umpire and I wouldn't want to watch it because I knew I embarrassed myself and I couldn't wait for another manager to get thrown out and he to be the headline. So it took the pressure off of me. I had some crazy ones, but I will miss that. I tell people the one thing I wish I could have done is when we first had replay, a lot of times where the umpires would go would either be in the end of a dugout or right behind home plate and get on the headsets. And a call wouldn't go the way you thought it. I just wish I could have went and argued with the replay people. I would have had a lot of fun doing that. But will I miss it? No, I don't think so. And I'm actually for the automated strike zone, because I believe there are certain at-bats in the game that are huge at-bats that you want it to be right. There are certain calls in the game before we had replay that were huge calls that could be wrong and change the whole complexion of the game.
See, when Joe, catching, he would, you get a guy out there with some good time of service. He's rolling, and all of a sudden, Joe's setting up a little bit on that outside corner off the plate. And because he's Joe Girardi, he's got some warehouse, he's got some hardware to his name. You're wearing that Yankee uniform, or you're wearing that Red Sox or that uniform, you're getting that ball off the plate.
But never on Mo, because he was
he always used to do it. And now the strike zone, is this going to be able to be refuted on every pitch, or is it just a?
So
what are the rules?
The way it works is only the catcher, pitcher, and hitter can do it. So you can't look to the dugout.
Okay.
Right. You have to do it right away. You get 2 challenges. If you're right, you don't lose one. So in reality, if you were right, you could argue every pitch.
Right.
But that it's not going to always be wrong. So you have to pick your spots,
So now how does that go? Does the manager go, listen, let's not do this until late in the innings, depending on the score, the situation? How do they talk to the players about when they think is the best time to challenge now because there's only getting 2?
Oh, I think there'll be a lot of strategy to it. I also think that I like that they tested it this year in spring training, because you could see the players who really had a good idea of what was right and what was wrong, and who the players that weren't. And I think you have to have a conversations with some of those players that aren't so sure.
Right.
Like easy, because you can't say, I'll take it back. They have to tap their head right away. And there happened to be one particular guy that I saw him get it wrong like 4 times in a row. So I'm like,
So you're going there, hey, man.
Hey, that's enough.
Challenge.
Yeah.
You can't challenge anymore.
Unless it's really late in the situation or there's a couple guys on and it's the last. We don't want to waste the challenge.
Right. Well, I like the idea, though, that the consequences on the hitter, because I know, like, watching Heat games, right? Like, you see Eric Spoelstra does not like to challenge. He hates the challenge. He doesn't like going to it. But you see players all the time. It's the finger wag all the time. And people are like, hey, they should make it so if the player does it, it's on.
It's on.
It's on. And so you would have everybody stop and do it because people get sick of the players every single time they hit a call doing the finger wag all the time. So I do like the fact that it is inconsequential to the players. I think that's an important thing.
And the great thing is in spring training, it only added 1 minute to the game.
Right.
So you would think there aren't a ton of challenges. And during the regular season, might there be more than a spring training game because it means more? Maybe. But I think it's quick, it's fast, and it's done instantly, and you move on. And I like it because think about what we got going on in baseball right now. It's fantastic. Detroit and Cleveland are tied, right? So there are big at-bats in these next few games that could determine who wins the division. I mean, one of them could be knocked out. You look at some of these wild card races, they're crazy. The Yankees are a game behind Toronto. San Diego's a game and a half behind LA. You want the players to decide it on the field, not a bad call. And this will allow players to do it.
How impressed are you with what Cal Raleigh's doing this season, just as in the catching fraternity?
It's incredible. And I think one thing that's kind of sad about it is we don't even talk about his catching.
And he's platinum.
He's a good
platinum glove.
But because he's got 750 home runs this year, that's all we talk about.
Yeah, he's platinum glove.
He's playing both sides of the ball, which is absolutely amazing. I've been completely impressed, and I didn't think you'd ever see a catcher hit that much. But again, you look at the size of him.
Yeah, he's huge, right?
Wow. I mean, he is big, and he's doing it at a ballpark where traditionally the ball hasn't carried.
You need a cannon to get it out of there.
Yeah.
You need a cannon. I think the other thing about him is usually the switch hitter, and I'm just saying, the left side is usually the one that they're very strong at because they see that all the time. And the left side is like either swing and miss or bomb. This guy's got 21, 22 on the left and 30-something on the right. He's just as powerful on both sides and consistent.
Yeah, I mean, he has maybe had the most impressive year of any catcher in the game of baseball. I think you could argue that. And now there are some catchers that hit for a higher average and could run and drove in runs, but this is ridiculous what he's doing. He's taking a video game and just playing.
Yeah. Well, Joe, could you, I guess, give us the sense of like what is that challenge like of catching and hitting? Like not feeling that great because you are 4 hours in a game. Like, how different do you feel when it's really dragging on you?
Well, the one thing that has changed and has allowed catchers to play a lot more and to physically be stronger throughout the year is the catching on one knee. It's changed it drastically. Some people don't like it. People will argue they block as many baseballs on the ground when one knee's on the ground and when one knee isn't. But it's allowed them to play. I once asked JT Real Muto about it. He said, man, it's made the biggest difference in the world, right? I have so much more energy. So it allows them to be more productive, which is great because what do we want in the game? We want our stars to be stars. And it's allowing him to be a star because he's on the field all the time. And that's the most important thing.
I'm so in that fashion. So, listen, I watched you. I had Tony Pena. I had, Varitek was a, great
what a
catcher.
great catcher.
You know what I mean? Like,
Posada.
Posada, watching these guys were all up blocking. And, me, I'm like, you got to be up blocking. You got to block. You got to get up. You got to get your butt up. And that whole thing that you just said about, longevity, you don't even think about that. But if guys are really, attesting to that, then it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and it makes them better framers on the low pitch. Now with the automated strike zone, I don't think they'll change. But if it was all automated, maybe they would change a little bit on what they did,
right?
And how they caught, maybe up on the normal traditional way more often. But again, too, like I did an evaluation of some of the catchers that throw on one knee and get up opposed to 2 feet. And like Mitch Garver was faster when he was on one knee because his feet weren't real quick.
Right.
And he could just pop up and throw. So there are a lot of advantages to it. And the other thing that you think about is pitchers have pretty good control. Most of the breaking balls they bounce are almost in front of you. So you're not sliding to the right or the left, right? And there are a lot of hitters because you talk about when you want to chase, you want it strike, ball.
Right.
If you throw it way outside, it's a ball right away, and they're not going to swing at it. So it's within the confines of your body, and you don't have to move much, and they can do it.
They call it competitive. They want a competitive pitch. That's the word they use.
Well, you let the kids, you let them catch on the one leg, or is
no, I don't.
No, you don't let them.
Well, they don't have the command.
Not on my.
On the young. Okay.
Yeah, they don't have the command, right? And so you don't want anything going back to the screen.
That makes sense. So, like, what are the things, like, as kids when they want to catch?
But I think I'm going to let him catch on one knee now, just from talking to Joe. Like,
Yeah.
I got one of my guys over on the other side, on the west side, kid that's 13 years old. He could really catch him up. But I get on him, because I'm like, hey, man, you got a guy on base. We got to be blocking. But from what Joe's speaking about.
So the way to deal with that, like if I was talking to you, obviously the most important ball to get by a catcher would be one that's scored him.
Right.
Or it got the third. So maybe if you're on first and second, you can go on one knee. If they're on third or it's the third strike, you have to be up. So see which way they do better.
Right. Yeah.
To get that feel for it. Like, is it a certain age when you, like, a kid, like, hey, I want to catch? Like, what do you tell that kid when he's like, this is something I love. I love being involved in every play.
I tell him to play long toss. And when you throw, I want you to throw on a line. I don't want a high pop-up because you're never going to throw a high pop-up when you throw to second base. Always throw through the bag and beyond the bag. Number two, I always tell them to block incredibles. Blocking is an instinct.
Yeah.
It's and if your instinct is you're always blocking hard baseball, your instinct is going to be protect yourself.
Yeah.
So you're going to get in really bad habits. So like coaches that would want to make me block hard balls off the machine, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. They would give us arm pads. I'm like, no, this is silly. And this is something that Gary Tuck taught me, who I thought was the best catching coordinator ever. He had us with the Yankees. He had Veritek with the Red Sox, and all those catchers love me. But he's like, why am I going to beat you up?
Right.
I'm not going to beat you. This is an instinct that you have to react really quickly. You have to read the ball, read it, block it, boom, right? So those are the two most important things. Understand that you're going to blink when guys swing and you catch the ball. That, like, someone was asking me, did you realize you blinked? And I said, no, not necessarily, but I'm sure I did. It's a natural reaction. I blink all the time now.
Right.
And it's a tough position, but it's a rewarding, and you fall in love with it. Like, I didn't start catching until I was 12. And the neighborhood gentleman by the name of Mr. Mervosh, who I played with his son Todd on this team, suggested it. And he was our mailman. And I caught when I was 12. And when I was 13, I went to the next level to a new tryout. And when they called for second baseman, I ran out to second base because I was like, I don't want to do this. But I absolutely fell in love with the position because of the responsibility, just all the thought process that goes into it, the competitive nature you have of trying to figure out how to get hitters out and your pitchers through the most. I think it's the best position.
That's why they make great managers. Look at them.
And on everything. You know what that pressure's like when that little dry spell when the Yankees didn't have the World Series. Right now, they're kind of feeling that. How much, what do you kind of, can you take us into even broadcasting those games, what those guys are feeling, getting ready for another October? So much on Aaron Judge. Everybody's got these heavy expectations on him to be the captain who brings the Yankees back.
I think as a player, you always just want one more chance.
Right.
That's because you don't realize how good it is until you experience it. You imagine how good it is. But that feeling of celebrating that you're going to the playoffs after, I mean, you've really probably been working since November of the year before. So you're talking about working like 11 months just to get to this spot. And the heartache when you lose is crushing. And you don't realize how good it is to win the World Series until you do it. You think you know, but you have no idea. So they're just dying for another chance. The Yankees have a bad taste in their mouth from last year with the way they played in the World Series. I mean, you could have argued that they should have won game 1.
Right.
Game 5 for sure.
Yep.
Right. I mean, they could have been in a much better situation, but they didn't. So they're going to get the opportunity. I'm sure Aaron Judge feels pressure, but the big thing is you got to be yourself. I mean, that's the most important thing. And you have to be willing to pass the baton. If they're not going to pitch to you, and you talked about the Yankee lineup, that's what the Yankee lineup was so good at, passing the baton. And we thought, like when we always played the Texas Rangers, the guy that was hitting always wanted to get the big hit and weren't willing to pass the baton. And that's why we were able to get by them, because they were extremely talented.
Yes. Yeah. You have to, especially and I try to make people understand those playoff games are different than the regular season. You're facing the number one and number two guy twice sometimes. And I feel like everybody's gets nasty. And they look to get you out. Like usually 0-2, all season long, you're looking for a waste pitch. When you get in the playoffs, guys are painting to they're going right at your weakness. All of a sudden, good night, Irene, real quick. Because that's where these guys are trying to keep their pitch count down and get back in the dugout and sit down. So I love Aaron Judge. I never met him. I sat there and watched him. I've watched him do some great things. He seems like one of the greatest human beings in the game. I want him to do well.
Yes.
I just want him to do well because I feel that people just will come down on him and they have no idea what he's trying to do.
It's going to be his fault.
It's going to be his fault.
And it may not be his fault.
And it might not be his fault. I just want him to do well in this situation one time so we can get that feel.
You know who was that in our generation? It was Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
He was clearly the best player, but he couldn't get that, off his back, that he couldn't have success in the playoffs. And then he did. And I think it's a relief for them. And it's so unfair, I think, to say to validate your career, you have to win a championship. You think about in baseball, how many other people it involves, the pitchers, the defenders, they say it in football, how many people it involves to be good. But that's the world we live in. You validate yourself by championships. And, being a longtime Cub fan, Ernie Banks was never able to do that.
Right.
And I felt for him because he was one of the greatest players of all time. Barry Bonds, one of the greatest players of all time. And they finally got an opportunity to do it. Aaron needs to be able to do it. And you know what? Aaron could be 0 in the World Series. And if they won the World Series, they would say he got his championship.
Yep. I remember my first playoffs in 1995. We clinched early. So we had like 7 days, a week off where it didn't matter. And I lost my edge. And I went 0 for 15 in the playoffs. I never forgot that. And I replayed that over and over in my mind till I got another chance in 98. And I wound up having a good series. And I hope for him that you just play it and see the success. I just hope he has it.
Yeah. And the other thing is he has to, and it's important that a lot of times they're not going to let him beat
right.
you, right? So it's important. And I always say, they always talk about who's hitting behind you. I think it's more important who's hitting in front of you, that they're on base, because if they're on base, they can't pitch around you.
I say this all the time, and I believe this wholeheartedly. It's not where you bat in the lineup. It's who's on the base when you come up.
Yes.
And I always wanted to be in a situation where I'm like, to me, man on first base with one out, I'm in scoring position. Who are you going to pitch to? Me or the guy behind me? We're tag teaming at that point. And I think that's so important. It's so important for the guys to occupy bases, to get that guy in the batter's box, the strikes, the outs, and the occupying of the base dictates what you're going to get.
That's right. So, it's important that you have on-base guys in front of him. Trent Grisham has done a really good job against right-handers. But part of it is he hits so many home runs. He clears the bases half the time.
Right.
Ben Rice has done a really good job in front of him, but Ben sometimes hits behind him. So it's a team game, and you got to pass the baton. And for you to do your job, a lot of times the guys in front of you and behind you have to do their job. That's the bottom line.
Joe, it was an honor having you here as the first guest in studio. We had a blast with you here.
Oh, this is great.
I don't know what to say, but thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This
was fun.
This is awesome. As I tell you all out there, for me to be sitting here with a guy that competed against and was talking to me in the batter's box while I was trying to produce. Thank you for being here, man. And if anything I can help you, anything, just let me know. I'm right here for you.
Well, Mo, I'm just going to tell you, I had so much respect for you as a player, and you brought it every day. And I brought up that story about you going to the pitcher's mound because each game meant so much to you and you wanted to win so badly. I love those type of players.
It was a real pleasure. Joe Girardi, thanks for the time. It's been the Mo Vaughn podcast, powered by Perfect Game and the Vaughn Sports Academy. We'll talk to you guys next time.